Do you believe that we are alone in this world? What if 34 officials from the government, military, and intelligence who don't necessarily know each other put their careers on the line to confirm 100% that we are not? That there's been a decades-long global cover-up of non-human intelligent life. UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena, aliens, share our world. Today we welcome Dan FARAH, the director and producer of The Age of Disclosure, the documentary that's exploding across the internet. He joins us. This is Hot Mics with Billy Bush, presented by our friends at LAGOLF. Hot Mics with Billy Bush. Great title. You know it. Welcome, everybody, to Hot Mics. Thank you for joining us on TuneIn and YouTube. This is an awesome one today. The Age of Disclosure on Prime Video reveals an 80-plus year cover-up of non-human intelligent life. Some of you listening still say bullshit. Some are saying, I told you so. I'm saying, wow, 2 of my closest relatives kept this secret. I've seen the documentary. I'm a believer. Some 34 bipartisan government, military, and intelligence insiders, all high-level people, you know, not tinfoil hat people, praying, you know, before we bring in Dan FARAH, the man who had to convince, secure, and protect the reputations of all these public servants who felt compelled to welcome us in to this long secret. Let's take a look.
We've had repeated instances of something operating in the airspace over restricted nuclear facilities, and it's not ours.
These are otherworldly things that are performing maneuvers that haven't been seen.
I have seen with my own eyes non-human craft and non-human beings.
This is so secret. There have been very few people in our entire government that have been allowed or provided access to it.
Even presidents have been operating on a need-to-know basis, but that begins to ramp out of control.
It's not acceptable to have secret parts of government that no one ever sees. People have been hurt protecting and hiding this information.
Some people claim it would cost them their lives if they spoke out about these things.
You had information being locked away that could change the trajectory for a species.
This is the biggest discovery in human history.
Like I said, it's blowing up all over Prime Video. It's the most talked about documentary now. Boy, just watching that little minute and 20, you feel so many things. When, you know, Kristen Gillibrand, the senator from New York, says, you know, nothing should be kept from the people. I say, I don't know. Many presidents decided to keep this from the people. What do they know, right? And obviously you start thinking about the reason they keep it from the people might be because we don't understand enough, and sowing uncertainty, you know, there's a cost to that. Marco Rubio in there, right? A senator who's been bipartisan. We'll get to his role in all of this. But there he is confirming it all, and he's now our, you know, chief diplomat in this country. So with no further ado, let's welcome the man who is the director and producer of The Age of Disclosure, Dan FARAH. Dan is here. Thank you so much for being here, first of all.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
My man, it's so good to see you. So, you know, you're a producer and you've done lots of scripted work. What compelled you to dive into this project? Have you always been curious? Have you believed that aliens have been, you know, with us for a long time?
Yeah, so I've always been curious about the topic. You know, my childhood was the 80s and early 90s, and the pop culture I grew up with really piqued my curiosity. So my favorite movies as a kid were Close Encounters and E.T. You know, X-Files was on television when I was growing up. And this pop culture just made me curious about the big questions like, are we alone in the universe? You know, have we been visited by other intelligent life? And does the U.S. government know more about these matters than the public? So it's really early on, my my imagination was captured, my curiosity was captured. And I, over the years, read every book and watched every doc on the topic. But I always wished that a documentary existed that only interviewed people who have direct knowledge of this topic as a result of working for the U.S. government. A serious doc that gave those people the platform to share what they could with us, and did it in a non-sensational, super serious, credible, sober way. But that doc never existed. It's obviously hard to pull off. It was some years back. I was one of the producers on Ready Player One, the big Steven Spielberg movie, and I was on set watching Spielberg direct in person. And he's the greatest filmmaker of all time, in my opinion. And his work, obviously, like I just said, it inspired me in the past. And I was sitting there watching him direct, and it got me inspired to want to direct something after years of producing. So I started thinking about what that might be, and ultimately decided I wanted to make the doc I always wish existed. And then that's really the origin story of how I went down this road.
Did you talk to Steven?
I talked to him about the topic in general when we were making Ready Player One. We had some.
Did you speak to him before setting out on this particular journey? Did he say?
I didn't.
No.
Actually. No, I didn't.
You heard from him at all? Is he?
I know. I'm waiting for him to watch the movie. I don't know if he's watched it yet. He's been super focused on his own. He's making a new movie now that's dealing with the UFO topic. That comes out next summer. It's another big UFO event film.
You did Ready Player One with Steven Spielberg. You've got to be chomping at the bit to see what he thinks.
I'm very eager to see what hear what he thinks. Yeah. It's a little nerve-wracking.
So how did you get these high-level officials to sign on to this, and how long did that take?
Well, it was a process for sure. So right out of the gate, I got introductions to a few intelligence officials who had worked on this topic on behalf of the U.S. government. And I spent many months forming relationships with them, earning their trust, doing my diligence on the lay of the land, learning who the players are in this situation, learning the realities of it, right? There's a lot of information you have to take in when you go down this road. It's a 80-year situation. So I put the time in to learn the lay of the land and to understand why people haven't spoken up in the past about what they lawfully could. There were a number of obstacles in the past. There's a really antiquated, illogical stigma around this topic in our country. People historically have had their reputations ruined, their careers ruined. They're on the receiving end of the giggle factor, people making fun of you for bringing this topic up. On top of that, the people who have covered the facts up around this have historically threatened people. They've said, if you speak up, we're going to ruin your career, we're going to ruin your reputation, or worse. And so as I learned why people hadn't spoke up, I started to form sort of the solution to the problem. And essentially what I started to present to people who dealt with this topic directly for the government was a plan for how to safely, comfortably share what they lawfully can. And the core elements of the plan were I was going to interview dozens of people, keep the whole thing secret until it's done. There would be strength in numbers for people. No one was being asked to go out on a limb on their own, and be out on a limb saying these extraordinary things on their own and be subject to ridicule or pushback.
Right. I would think one of the first things you're going to hear from a counterintelligence, Army officer is who else is doing this, right? But you got to start that list at some point, place. So you need a few yeses at the same time. Yeah.
So I had a few intelligence officials early on that committed to be a part of this, as long as I got dozens of others, Yeah. And so I started to get sort of like passed around in the community of people who have direct knowledge of this. And one person by one person, I would form relationships. They would open other doors for me. Eventually, it went from senior intelligence officials to sitting senators and former White House Security Council members and generals and admirals. And I started to kind of get passed up the ladder, so to say. But the plan was I would put together dozens of people who would all break their silence arm in arm with what they can lawfully disclose. And that gave them safety in numbers. It gave them strength in numbers, as a lot of them say. It made them less afraid to speak up.
Wow. Here you are with one of them right there. It's a great picture of you behind the scenes with them. But there's a bunch of takeaways from this, that have people talking. One, right off the bat, the discovery of this massive UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena, over our nuclear facilities. I mean, you know, there's a size of a super Walmart is some sort of, you know, spaceship or vehicle we've never seen before, hovering over the blast door. Is that what it's? Is that what?
Yeah. So I interviewed a number of Air Force security forces officers. So for people who don't know what that is, basically these are extremely trusted security guards on our most sensitive military bases, including our nuclear bases. I interviewed a number of these guys that had personally experienced massive UAP incursions of those sensitive bases. So huge UFOs, the size of football fields. One guy describes the size of a football field, another guy describes the size of a super Walmart.
And it's matte black and like something we would see in a movie.
So one of them specifically took place about an hour and a half north of where we are right now at Vandenberg Air Force Base on the coast of California, where a giant matte black UAP the size of a football field came over the base. 6 guards looking up witnessed it with their own eyes. It had no lights, no propulsion system, no visible propulsion system. And then
silent.
Totally silent. And then this thing rocketed off at thousands of miles an hour up the coast, they said.
But it stayed hovering over the nuke facility, the blast door, so it's gathering, we assume, some information, data from our...
Maybe it's doing data collection. Maybe it's... There's a lot of maybes there. But.
And it takes off, zooming up the coast at a speed that we could never match with our technology, with our propulsion
No, this
systems.
sort of activity, shockingly, has been witnessed all over the country for decades at our nuclear bases. Some of these nuclear-based stories go back 30, 40 years. And what was also wild for me as I went down the rabbit hole is each of these intelligence officials, generals, admirals, senators that I would meet, they all, for the most part, didn't know each other, right? They didn't have relationships. These weren't people that were like all in on something together. They were all involved in different ways with this issue, and they all have different political views. They all have different like world views and different ideologies, but they all were saying the same thing about this.
They aren't all part of some secret society that,
Yeah. These were
Are you sure of that? I mean,
Oh,
if you
yeah,
look at like
for
the
sure.
Legacy Project is something even the President of the United States, whoever that is at the time, there's some things we know that they don't know.
Everyone I interviewed had bumped up in some regard to the Legacy program, the deeply hidden UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program that has kept this all secret for many years.
Interesting. There's this part about these our missile sites. UAPs activated and deactivated nuclear missiles?
Yeah, so one of the very senior intelligence officials I interviewed went on the record about how there have been numerous events where UAP have activated, deactivated nuclear weapons in the U.S. and in Russia. And obviously that's a high-stakes, terrifying situation.
Jesus.
Here's the other thing that, it's really important to remember. These people aren't just saying extraordinary things. They're doing it in a way that puts their name and reputation on the line, right? They have nothing to gain by lying.
The strongest thing in the whole film is the roster of people involved. And you look at how much of their lives they've given to the government and to science and to counterintelligence and the different areas and you look at how much they've given of their lives, and then they realize this is everything to them. So to do this, and they're doing it as much as they can. There's certain things obviously that couldn't be said. There's more out there. You have a second film to do. I don't know how much further you can get, but is there a sense that that these UAPs and these non-human intelligent beings, is there a sense that they're interested in something more than something else? Like, do we have any sort of clue of, is there connectivity between the sightings and their ultimate purpose?
Yeah, so a number of the officials in the film reveal that their educated conclusion, their educated hypothesis on intention, specifically with regard to the monitoring of our nuclear weapon capabilities and our defense capabilities, is that this non-human intelligent life that is here is concerned about our progress of harnessing nuclear energy. And, the fact that we're coming up this technology curve very rapidly over the last 80 years. But as a species, we're still a violent species that hasn't evolved in that same amount of time.
That's interesting, because I started to feel that they are nonviolent.
I mean, look, at the end of the day...
Or else we would have been wiped out a long time ago. They're monitoring us from somewhere else, and they're, well, hey, do they understand, okay, maybe we weren't planning on them developing nuclear technology, but now that they have, are they responsible with it? And they're looking at it, I would assume, not just America, they're looking at a global level. They're looking at Vladimir Putin and how stable he is in their programming.
Yeah. So one of the intelligence officials in my film very specifically says, if I was an intelligent species from somewhere else and I was seeing us, rapidly progress technologically over the last 80 years, but still remain just as violent of a species as we were coming out of World War II, I would be concerned that here's this species of people, here's these humans that are now starting to, get to the point of doing the sort of technological breakthroughs that we can do, and we're going to have to deal with them. So now we've got to actually be concerned about them, So I think one of the driving forces for a lot of people coming public was this feeling that we're barreling towards a crossroads where essentially we got to get our act together as a species, as people.
Yeah, we got to stop fighting over tariffs and who's going to invade what country and all these little wars that we're, what's happening is, I look at of all the things that we could cooperate in the world with other countries on, this is it.
Oh, this could definitely be the single most unifying new chapter for humanity. Ronald Reagan gave a really famous speech when he was president in the United Nations where he said, I think this is almost word for word, he says, I often think that a threat from off this planet might be the one thing that could remind all of us here of our commonalities, of what we have in common more than what we have more than the differences we have, and bring us together as a species more than anything. And he's probably right.
We're talking to Dan FARAH, who is the director and producer of The Age of Disclosure, which is really popular on Prime Video right now. I watched it, absolutely floored me. Several presidents are mentioned in there, but we get the understanding that all going back 80 years have some sort of exposure to this. But George Bush 41, who is my father's older brother, spoke at my graduation, was told by a CIA official that a non-human entity landed and deboarded their UAP, their craft, and interacted with civilian and I guess CIA officials, asking for more. He was told that he was on a need-to-know basis. Like, first of all, who's telling him that? And if the president is on a need-to-know basis, who's not?
Yeah. So the film reveals that a number of presidents have found out the base facts, the fact that we're not alone in the universe, the fact that there have been recoveries of crashed craft of non-human origin. And in some cases, they found out that there's been contact events. But they're not given the full picture, and they're not given all the details, and they are discouraged from talking about it clearly. Bush...
And mostly for the reason that you don't want to sow too much uncertainty, right? I mean, if they don't have all the answers, as soon as you say something like that, people are going to be like, wait a minute, there's an uproar.
Who's in charge?
What the hell are you going to say at that point?
Yeah, then it's like, who's in charge? Who's running the country?
Right.
Interestingly, your family has a lot of history with it. So Bush, the film reveals that Bush 1, when he was director of the CIA, was not told about this. And then when he became president, he pursued the information.
Isn't that interesting? Because he was director of the CIA from basically 1977 or 76 to 1 year, and in that time
wasn't told the information. And then when
had
he was
no knowledge.
And then when he was president, he pursued information and he found out some. But like you just said, he was told that he didn't have a need to know. And then Bush 2 actually contemplated going public shortly after 9/11 with what he knew, base facts. And the film reveals that he held a think tank over the course of a week. Some of the people that were in the think tank are in my film, and they go on camera and talk about it, where they were asked to basically analyze what the impact, positive or negative, would be to a bunch of different areas, right? Like the economy, religion, they basically broke down all these elements of our society and determined ultimately that it wouldn't be a good idea, that it would have too many negative repercussions to reveal this truth. And that was, that was after 9/11. Maybe it was about the moment we were in. We were coming out of a national disaster.
It's just too much for people to handle after 9/11 to be told, okay, and wait, there's more.
Yeah. And so ultimately, he obviously decided not to go public.
There's also a story that's out there, and it's not, I don't think it's in the film, but that Jimmy Carter was briefed. I don't know if you heard anything about that.
Yeah,
He was briefed, and he broke it down in tears. Like, he was sobbing because he was saying, I think they told him, this non-human intelligence created religion. They created a bunch of things. That's that's not in the film. But did you hear any?
I've heard that as well, and it's well known was a deeply religious man, and so maybe it was really challenging. I think as Congressman Carson in the film very nicely says, this is the truth around all this is hard for a lot of people to wrap their heads around. It challenges a lot of people's beliefs. It challenges a lot of people's sense of reality. And so, reactions will vary, But I do think we're in a different place than we were right after 9/11, as a people. And I think people are hungry for the truth on this. And I think people can handle the base facts. And I also think this film sets the stage for a sitting president to actually step to the mic and more comfortably tell the world those base facts.
Well, you're dealing with a sitting president at this moment who would gravitate towards a moment that would be shared on TikTok by 80 trillion people for the rest of the time.
It's the biggest moment a leader could possibly ever have. Certainly the biggest television moment in history would be a president stepping to the mic.
We're going to discuss that. We're going to discuss some of the UAP that have been discovered, people in the film who have seen with their own eyes. I'm interested in the role of Senator Marco Rubio, now Secretary of State. It's fascinating, more to do. Dan FARAH is with us. He is the director-producer of The Age of Disclosure. If you haven't seen it on Prime Video, get to it. I'm telling you. So we'll do more of that in a second. But first, a note from our sponsor, Fume. If you're part of the 50% of people who attempt to quit vaping each year, you need to equip yourself with the right tools for the job. And I happen to have it right here. Look at this. There's no better tool to break up with vaping or smoking than Fume. Over 500,000 people are now using it, as it's backed by lab-tested safety studies. Doctors and customers agree Fume's a good habit. It's a lot cheaper than your bad habit. The Fume device, incredibly satisfying. It's weight, it's kind of heavy, it's sexy, sleek, good colors, nicotine-free, and the flavors are savory. I got a little blueberry going right there. It's pretty good. So start your guilt-free journey with the good habit and use code HOTMICS to get a free gift with your purchase and begin your overdue breakup. Just head to tryfume.com/hotmics. That's tryfum.com/hotmics and use the code HOTMICS to start the good habit today. All right, Hot Mics with Billy Bush rolls on, brought to you by LAGOLF. The LA golf balls are in stock. The longest ball in golf has a proprietary design for a 4-piece ball that spins through the apex, giving you 8 to 10 yards further. Who doesn't want that? And once you're on the green, don't miss the Bel Air 2 putter with its carbon fiber body and its signature P-Series shaft. I'm draining putts all over the place. This thing actually does taste good. Dan FARAH is in studio with us, and we're talking about his documentary, The Age of Disclosure. Dan, the stigma and smear campaign. Most in leadership have been deeply resistant, too embarrassed, it seems, to acknowledge, UAP, and that there's life amongst us, outside of us. Keep your mouth shut is the prevailing order. They smeared the ATIP leader, Lou Elizondo. ATIP means Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. He's a U.S. Army counterintelligence special agent, Lou Elizondo, who, there were disinformation campaigns launched at him aimed to crush his reputation. He quit ATIP to tell his story. What has happened to him, and was he apprehensive getting involved? Because he's taken the most beatings of anyone out there. People do that when they don't know things.
Yeah, he's certainly taken a lot of beatings when he went public in 2017, and the origins of that agenda of going public are covered in the film. Essentially, Lou Elizondo and another intelligence official named Jay Stratton, they were dealing with investigating this on behalf of the government, and they learned how serious and real it is. And every time they tried to raise the alarm bells within the Pentagon back then, they were blocked by the bureaucracy and the stigma around this topic, right? A lot of people in leadership didn't want to touch it because they thought it would hurt their reputation or their career, and they were putting their own self-interest above the safety of the nation. And so these two guys, they basically made a plan for how to bring this out of the shadows and into the light. One of them would go public and make a bunch of noise in the media. That was Lou Elizondo. And the other, Jay Stratton, would stay behind and move the ball forward inside of government. And Lou knew.
Wow. So Jay Stratton would sit there and say, well, I mean, this Lou guy, I mean, he's out there and he's making noise. We should do something here.
Well, specifically, Lou would go out there and make a bunch of noise in the media, and that would get Congress's attention, right? And Congress is in the dark on this.
They get voted if enough of their constituents, are demanding transparency and they're not doing anything about it.
Yeah, and so then the Congress members would then go to the Pentagon and say, hey, we need answers on this. And then Jay would be there to catch that new interest and move the ball forward.
And this is truly bipartisan. Like, this is where the bipartisanship in Congress, which we don't see any of it today, but this was Chuck Schumer. This is Gillibrand. Chuck Schumer could use some good press right now. This is him. This is Marco Rubio from Florida.
The most bipartisan issue of our time, by far. People who are completely opposed ideologically, politically, are lined up on this. Schumer, Rounds, Rubio, all these people who are leaders in each party are lined up. But yeah, so when Lou went public, he knew he was going to catch a lot of heat, and a disinformation campaign targeted him right off the bat. The Pentagon put out a statement undermining him, saying that he had never worked on this topic, never been a part of any of the official investigations. And as in the film, Jay Stratton, the other official, says on camera, he says, when Lou went public, I got an email from the Pentagon spokesperson saying they're going to put out a statement saying that Lou had nothing to do with investigating UAP. And Jay said he wrote back saying, that's not true. That would be a lie. And they ran with it anyway. Wow. And so it's a really significant moment in the film. The shining a light on the extent to which our government puts out misinformation and is even willing to discredit and ruin the reputation of people who have served our nation,
And speaking of that, the CIA funded Hollywood movie campaigns. I mean, look where we are. Some of the stuff, I don't know. Look, you grew up watching, E.T., maybe Close Encounters of the Third Kind. How much involvement was there? And, do Hollywood movie studios take orders from the government?
Well, look, some of the people in my film revealed that the CIA has, in fact, funded some Hollywood movies. To be honest, they didn't give me the specifics of which ones. I think it was more content that was designed
to create ridicule,
to create a stigma. So it would be more content that would create the giggle factor.
Like, it's crazy, these big orbs would come down. It's also over the top, and okay.
I interviewed a very senior CIA official in the film named Jim Semivan, who's not just a random CIA official. This guy was on essentially the board of the CIA for 25 years. He was leadership of the CIA. And he goes on the record saying that the CIA created the stigma back in the late 40s as a way to get people to avoid looking into the truth. The easiest way to get people to
give people an easy off-ramp that they can giggle at.
Yeah. And if you're a journalist, you're not going to seriously inquire about something that the culture, the broad zeitgeist thinks is ridiculous to look into, right?
So Dan, why over the last few years has the government suddenly admitted to hundreds of sightings? I mean, is it the pressure from Congress? Is it the courage of Lou Elizondo and Jay Stratton? Is it?
It's a number of things. Certainly, the plan Jay Stratton and Lou Elizondo put in motion was hugely impactful in helping get us here. But there's a lot of factors at play. So one is the people who have found out the reality of the situation in the intelligence community, the military, and the government, they're extremely concerned about this high-stakes race we're in with adversarial nations to reverse engineer technology of non-human origin. It's essentially the Manhattan Project on steroids, one intelligence official says in my film, right? It's the atomic race on steroids. And our biggest competitors are our adversaries, China and Russia. And there's a significant concern amongst the people I interviewed that we could lose that race if our scientific community and the public doesn't understand this is real. Because how can
so transparency with
help.
the public is strategic.
Yeah. So an analogy that one intelligence official made, actually it's not in the film. I had to cut it out for time, but it's a pretty good analogy, so I'll share it. During the Cold War, we kept everything secret and Russia kept everything secret, and we kind of moved along at the same pace relatively. Then in the electronics race, consumer electronics race, we opened it up, we made it public, and we let all like the biggest, smartest companies in our country compete, and we just took off like a rocket compared to the progress that Russia had. And so the thought process here is this is an issue, a technology race that we need all the smartest people in our country putting their brain power towards. And they can't do that if 99% of them don't know it's real. And so simply put, that is a major driver for the base, people wanting to bring the base facts out. And then there's just like the weight on the shoulders of a lot of these people. No one wants to go home knowing that like they're one of a small group of people that has this profound information that the average person deserves to know, And I think it's gotten to a point where people are like, I need to get this off my shoulders.
There's this interesting part when in 1989, Soviet scientists discovered very advanced weapons and 4 alien bodies. We don't trust anything else, they say. Why do we trust that?
So a couple of the intelligence officials in my film go on the record revealing that they are aware of credible intelligence that's been gathered by our intelligence capabilities that say Russia has retrieved a number of crashed UAP, and that specific one you're mentioning was apparently a Tic Tac shaped UAP, much larger than the Tic Tac encountered by the Nimitz Carrier Strike Group, the famous Tic Tac UFO we're all aware of, right? And inside it were non-human bodies that were recovered in this crash. And also in that UAP, apparently there was a really advanced directed energy weapon that the Russians began trying to reverse engineer back in the 80s.
They began. So what stopped them? Why didn't they?
Well, we don't know.
Maybe they have.
Maybe they have. Maybe they have. It was a long time ago. One of the wild things for me in doing these interviews and learning this information was constantly reminding myself that what they're revealing is only what they can legally reveal. And there's a whole lot more on that other side of the fence. And that's consistently been a very concerning thought.
It's important to stay, sober-minded, in all of this. Like I start thinking, your mind can go places. I start thinking, well, this whole Epstein files thing, there's a whole push for transparency on that. Is that a distraction from this? What is a distraction? I can't think of anything in the world more important than this particular topic. We're dropping tariffs on China, and then we pull them back, and we have trade wars and all these things. When you see this documentary, all you want is for China and Russia and America to sit down at the table and all other countries and realize we are tiny. We're nothing. There is something so much more advanced that's out there that makes us almost trivial.
Yeah.
So in order to, we at this point, let's put it aside. Who's bigger than who? Who's better than who? Whose economy is bigger than who? That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It must be a reminder that we really very much one.
Yeah. And regardless of our differences, we're all in this situation together.
But I still keep coming back to this non-human intelligence as benevolent. I get this vibe that it's benevolent, so it doesn't scare me. I know there's national security, that we have to treat that as the biggest concern right away. But given what has been seen by the high-level people involved in this documentary with their own eyes, what's been recovered, what's been, reverse engineered, what's been classified to me, we know enough that it just says to me we are on the same, we can be on the same page here.
I mean, look, I think logic suggests that, these more intelligent species that have discovered us, they haven't destroyed us yet. So there's obviously an opportunity to coexist. There's an opportunity for us to benefit from their technology and expand our horizons and evolve, from what we learn from them. However, as the intelligence officials in my film and military officials and government officials all, make very clear, we also have to be concerned about where things could go bad. I mean, the reality of it is UAP didn't stop us from dropping the atomic bomb on Japan and, killing thousands of people in an instant. They didn't stop any of the wars over the last 80 or so. As one intelligence official says in my film, clearly they're willing to let us learn from our mistakes, right? They're willing to.
But if Putin knows what at least, our past presidents know at his level, why is he, invading Ukraine at this point? Do you think the concerns are bigger? Well, is there any evidence that we've had discussions at an international level, at the highest levels, with these other countries?
So some of the people I spoke to, and this is not in the film, but some of the intelligence officials I spoke to were well aware, actually, that your uncle,
Bush 41,
did have a relationship with Gorbachev where they shared information on this, and they tried to look out for both nations. Apparently, there was a communication channel opened up for them to make each other aware of UAP activity that they're tracking, so that neither country mistakes that as an action by the Russians or the Americans. But I don't think that communication channel exists anymore. I think it broke down over the last couple decades, and now I think we are in a very high stakes secret Cold War race to reverse engineer this technology, and our biggest competitors are China and Russia. That's what every single.
Bush 40. If you missed Bush 41 before, I mean, sorry, I know I'm biased, but it takes a very sobering, intelligent, experienced mind to even wrap your head around this. Boy, I'm looking at this U.S. government's total. At one point, you talk about inability to intercept UAP, right? They're too advanced. This, of course, poses a potential existential threat. At one point, we were unable to maintain sovereignty over U.S. airspace.
Yeah. I mean, look, the reality of it is every single person in my film goes on the record saying that UAP are operating with impunity in our airspace, and especially our most sensitive airspace.
They go 40,000 miles an hour is what we've documented as the highest. And as far as, aerial vehicles we have, I mean, 4,600 is the max.
We can't come close to
They're
performing.
10 times faster.
Yeah, we can't come close to performing. Look, Rubio, when I interviewed him, he was a senior senator. He was the vice chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee. He was on his path to becoming Secretary of State. He says very clearly that there's UAP activity over our most sensitive sites, including our nuclear weapon sites, and it's not ours, and we don't know whose it is, and that's a problem. And then he says it deserves inquiry, it deserves serious investigation, and he's right. Like, any way you have to look at this to wrap your head around it, you got to take it serious. So, like, if you have to tell yourself to wrap your head around it, you have to tell yourself this is an adversarial nation invading our airspace, then fine, tell yourself that. Because if it's China or Russia, that's a major problem too.
What's interesting is that Marco Rubio was one of the first senators to get serious about it. And now this is why I was interested in him before, he is our top diplomat in this country. He's the Secretary of State. And I wonder if that's not by accident, if somebody at least got to President Trump and said, hey, please choose Rubio for the one who's, speaking at the highest levels with different governments. I mean, he gets it at least.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, look, he learned a lot as the vice chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee.
Yeah.
And he made the conscious decision to participate in the film. He did a very long interview with me. We prepped it for months with the staff of the Senate Intelligence Committee and with his staff. And he revealed what he lawfully could. And he was more transparent than he's ever been on the topic in that interview. Now, obviously, he's in a different situation. He's the second most powerful guy in the world. He's the national security advisor. He's the Secretary of State. He obviously is much more aware of the facts around this at a classified level. He can't talk about it the same as he could before. Thank God he did talk about it like he did before. So that exists. That's on the record, right?
Has Trump ever said anything about UAP?
Yeah, when he was campaigning, he said that he would bring about disclosure. He said, I know.
He also said that about the Epstein files. He would bring about disclosure. I mean, maybe you learn things afterwards. Once you say that, then you dig a little bit, and I don't know why he hasn't, but you were saying before, one thing would be fascinating is to see the President of the United States with the presidential seal on the podium saying, we are not alone in the universe.
It's the biggest moment.
It's the biggest moment in the world, and Trump loves big moments. So
yeah, I mean, literally, if you really, I've done this, so I challenge you to do it. Think about what are the biggest moments leaders have had in human history, right? Make the list. It's like the
Walking
Gettysburg.
on the moon, it's Gettysburg Address, it's
Martin Luther King, I
Have a Dream. It's
Kennedy's space speech.
We talked about FDR. This day will live in infamy.
This trumps all of that. You, if the leader of the free world
if you
steps
want to
the
appeal to his
microphone,
ego, this is the way to do it. It's like, it's going to be the biggest of all of those. You'll be the most retweeted.
Yeah, it's not even debatable. It's the greatest TV moment in the history of humanity. It's the most historical moment. The leader of the free world stepping to the microphone, telling the world we're not alone in the universe and that the U.S. intends to lead the way. It is the greatest moment anyone could ever have. And honestly, it just cement any leader's legacy. And the other thing you got to remember is, if you're in the White House right now and you're gaming out the pros and cons of that, you also got to worry about, hey, what if Putin just decides to go do that and grab that moment? What if she does that?
Why haven't they? It's like
it's a good question. It's a good question. Maybe
why not do it together? You want to make an even greater moment? Do it with Xi and Putin.
That would be
and Trump.
That would be massive. Yeah.
Whoa, so amazing.
The other thing to remember about that moment is the Kennedy space race speech. Kennedy's we're gonna win the space race speech. Mm-hmm. He makes a point of saying space technology, like nuclear technology, has no conscience of its own. It's up to mankind whether it's used for good or bad, right? That was the whole point he made, right? Mm-hmm. It's a very similar situation here. This technology can be used to revolutionize our lives and change things for the better, or it can be used to create horrific weapons of mass destruction and cause a lot of damage, right? And so it's really in the same way that Kennedy was saying in his space race speech that it's important the U.S. play a role in deciding how that technology is used and leading the way. Same thing goes here. It's really crucial that a nation that has good intentions leads the way and plays a role in making sure that this technology benefits all mankind.
Yeah, I see the past presidents, get together at a funeral or something, and you see 4 or 5 of them. They're together. There's Obama, there's Clinton, there's there's George W. Biden, I guess, and then you wonder, like, when they're in the back room together, they're like, holy mackerel, can you believe it? Do they talk to each other about it? Do they have a special look? Because they've all have some type of knowledge. There's another thing that we're going to talk about here in a second called these. It's the stuff that streaming series are made of. It's called the Legacy Project, and this is it's that organization that knows more, and how they function and what they have recovered. There's so much in this documentary. You've got to see The Age of Disclosure. Dan FARAH is with us. More of that coming up in just a second. But first, one more break for our sponsors. Christina Oakes from VENBROOK Insurance runs private client over there. Christina told me about a family whose attic AC unit was leaking for months. They had no idea. You know what that means? Mold in the house. Their home became uninhabitable. But because of the fine print in their insurance policy, a minor oversight became a major out-of-pocket expense. It can happen to anybody. Insurance needs, especially for high net worth individuals, are not one size fits all. You need a partner who understands the fine print and gives you an insurance strategy. We're talking about specialty coverage, liability insurance for staff, and layering policies to protect large assets. The right insurance partner gives you confidence to make bold decisions, and that is why VENBROOK's tagline is boldly go forward. Put your insurance strategy in place today. Book a free consultation with Christina's team at venbrook.com/hotmics. You can tell them Billy sent you. Today's show is also sponsored by PrizePicks. It's my favorite place to win money. The app could not be easier to use. You create a lineup by choosing a more or less on a player's projected stats. Here's what I'm doing for tonight's Monday Night Football. The Eagles at the Chargers. Let's take a look. Jalen Hurts, will he throw for more or less than 193.5 yards? I'm going to say more. Jalen is the man. He wears number 1 for a reason. Opposing him, Justin Herbert, quarterback for the Chargers. Will he throw for at least 1 passing touchdown? Oh, yes, of course he will. And will he throw for more or less than 213.5 passing yards? I'm going to say more. Herbert is definitely the man. So there you go. Easy enough. PrizePicks will give you $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. So win or lose, you get $50 in lineups, free. Use promo code Hot Mics when you sign up today. Okay, we roll on here on Hot Mics, brought to you also by LAGOLF, but I won't do another one. We'll save that one. Dan Farah's with us. The Age of Disclosure on Prime Video. It is riveting. Let's talk about the Legacy Project. Excuse me, the Legacy Program.
Yeah.
The Legacy Program. It is the highest level government program above the president and congressional review. They have the ability to dispatch to the site of a UAP crash, conduct retrieval and reverse engineering, and immediately classify the findings so that it stays out of the public sphere. They compete on our behalf with other countries in retrieval and reverse engineering. If anything I've said is wrong, correct me. Jay Stratton, another guy, we talk about him, with his own eyes has seen non-human craft and non-human beings. But the Legacy Program.
Yeah,
this is exciting to know that they exist because we believe they're benevolent, but also they operate above or separate from presidential and congressional review.
So a number of the people in my film reveal that they uncovered this deeply hidden UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program known as the Legacy Program. And the interview subjects reveal that it involves elements of the CIA, the Air Force, the Department of Energy, and major defense contractors. And this deeply hidden program has existed for decades and has completely covered up the facts around this matter.
How many decades?
What people say in the film is that the early days of the Legacy Program began in the 40s,
1940s.
Following Roswell, so 80 years. And that this program is kept from congressional oversight. It's kept away from the president. Elected officials are basically viewed as temporary seat holders. And the permanent bureaucracy of this program gatekeeps the reality of the situation and has the ability to classify it in a way that keeps it from Congress and the public and even a sitting president. Now, the film also reveals that, like we talked about, some presidents have found out the base facts, right? The fact that we're not alone in the universe, the fact that this program exists, right? But they're not given any of the details. And as you said, they're kept on a need-to-know basis.
What's polling like amongst people, just regular people? Because when you see a very serious and sobering, former naval pilot say that he took off from the Nimitz and he witnessed this, I saw it with my own eyes, this is what it looked like, you're seeing the footage, then you put together the general consensus that 34 high-level government officials who don't necessarily know each other, maybe some of them have met, don't come together to tell some crazy conspiracy theory and a lie.
Yeah.
For what reason? Like, this doesn't happen.
Yeah. Every poll I have seen.
Is it 50-50 that people believe
No,
in?
it's like very high numbers where the average person believes the government is hiding what they know. But also, it's not a matter of belief. Like, leaders in our government have straight up said this information is being hidden.
Marco Rubio is sitting there. I believe Marco.
Yeah, Rubio, Chuck Schumer stood on the Senate floor with Senator Rounds. So Senator Rounds, leader from the Republican Party, Schumer, leader from the Democratic Party. They literally stood on the Senate floor and fought for a piece of legislation they were proposing called the UAP Disclosure Act that was designed to bring about transparency. And on the Senate floor, they talk about how the U.S. government has hidden for many years what it knows about this. And Schumer literally says that is wrong and it breeds mistrust. And he says the American people have a right to know about technology of non-human origin and unexplainable phenomenon. I mean, it's super overt. Anyone who has the position to find out whether this is a real situation or not has spoken up and said this is a real situation. And I don't know if the president has realized how popular this issue is, coming clean on this would be the most popular action a leader could take. Like just in
But
terms
when you
of
say
popular
coming
opinion.
clean, I mean, do you think that in order to have, obviously when you give some, people want more. They want as much as we possibly know, and the president doesn't even know.
Well, I think
to what level the
there's a
legacy
great-
program does know.
Yeah.
They know the most, but they're not the legacy program if they come out and tell everybody what they know.
Well, I think there's a way to do this. And one of the people in my film makes a great analogy. He's like, we did this with nuclear technology, right? The world knows nuclear weapons exist. The world knows nuclear technology is a real thing. It can be used for good. We have nuclear power plants, right? People can go and study the science around nuclear technology in our best schools, right?
Yeah.
There's all these base facts that are known. However, the average person understands and accepts that there's stuff regarding nuclear technology that should be classified, right? We don't need to know the full capabilities of nuclear weapons and where we have them and what we have and we don't have. That should all obviously stay secret. That's common sense, right?
Yeah.
Like, we don't want to voice all that for our adversaries to hear it too, right? So there's a way to do this where you just make the world aware of the base facts instead of gaslighting the entire human population and saying, hey, this isn't real, when we know it is. Just say it's real. Just put the base facts, the
But
cards
then how
on
do
the
you
table.
handle the press conference afterwards? Are they friendly? Are they benign? Are we okay? We think so. I mean,
think,
then
be
it
honest on, there's a
suggests
lot
that
to learn
nobody's
here.
in control. And when dad's not in control, the kids get, or mom and dad aren't in control, the kids get they unstable.
Well, I think you're touching on another one of the reasons that have driven secrecy over the years. So there's actually been white papers written about this. You can find them online, political theory, about the idea that a government acknowledging the existence of an advanced species that that nation can't defend itself against would be essentially giving up that government's power. Like, the act of saying that would make people not feel like their government protects them. There's this political theory that has sort of been floated around for decades, and it's made a lot of leaders think that's the downside to telling the truth. I think personally that's all nonsense.
Yeah.
I think no average American's gonna be like, oh, the president told me there's a more advanced life form out there. He's being honest, thankfully, and then decide that means they don't think the U.S. government can do its job anymore. That's not true. People want their leaders just to be honest on a base level. I think the president can safely say,
Advice to be dishonest never is a good advice.
what's that?
Advice to be dishonest is just never good advice.
Yeah, it's stupid, short-sighted. I mean,
And do you think the internet and social media and our interconnectivity has been helpful in moving this to the forefront too?
oh yeah, I think,
Right, because people are
yeah.
communicating.
I think the internet, I think this era we are in of long form podcasts, like, from you to Joe Rogan, I think that has all helped. It's opened people's eyes. It gives a forum for talking about this stuff in a way that it didn't exist in the past. Someone sees something in another country and they put it on X, everyone knows about it the next day.
Everyone knows.
It's certainly helped make this topic, socialized more and more widely thought about. Shout out to Joe Rogan, man. That guy has really opened a lot of minds on this, and
He sure has.
and made a big impact, I think, on society and on this disclosure effort that's been
And by
going
the
on.
way, took his fair share of demonizing over the whole thing too. Oh, wacky Joe Rogan. I mean, how many times people in the mainstream media have called crazy Joe Rogan, wacky Joe Rogan? Oh, this, they tried to make him a tinfoil hat guy, and he's just like, no. And he's got, he communicated it, frankly, brilliantly.
Yeah,
Very well.
No, and I think history is going to look back favorably on people like him, people like you who are giving this topic, the attention it deserves. Mainstream legacy media has not really done its job with regard to this topic. One of the things revealed in my film,
Or maybe they have done their job, but their job description needs to change.
exactly, as I was saying, one of the people in my film reveals that the legacy program that has covered this up has basically used its influence on mainstream legacy media to get them to keep quiet about this. And
Well, if you've done the film industry, why not? Why not mainstream media? One other thing we should touch on, which was one of the big standout takeaways, was the biological effects. There's a former, I think it's a pilot, or no, is a Mike Flaherty.
Oh, Mike Flaherty's intelligence official. He
Flaherty.
He
experienced from an encounter with a UAP. He inner scarring inside. It did something to his biology. He had some
negative health effects. Yeah, negative health effects. So one of the
what exactly did he encounter? How close was he? And
honestly, he didn't want to get into the details of his specific event and his specific health issues. It was really brave of him, I think, just to even go on the record and say that while working with the UAP task force, the government's UAP investigation, he encountered UAP, and he specifically does talk about orbs, these like balls of light that emit a lot of energy.
And it's burned through.
He got close to them, and he had negative biological effects. There's a number of people who have had serious biological effects. I don't think it's a intended negative consequence. My takeaway after interviewing a lot of people about this is simply this is technology that's far superior to what we have.
Right.
And it'd be like going behind an F-16 when it's taking off. If you didn't know what an F-16 was, you're going to get burned, right?
Yeah.
There's just unintended consequences of being near and making contact with advanced technology.
Dan, one of the things that people are like, why are they so fuzzy, these images? Well, they go very fast. When you see these, why can't we zero in? But the other thing is so many of these, officials in the documentary speak about this clear, they're inside, a lot of these UAP are inside this orb.
A bubble, yeah. So basically
a bubble, a space-time bubble, right?
Yeah. So a number of the senior scientists who have been involved in government UAP programs, they step out of shadows and reveal some of their big learnings in this film. And one of the most significant learnings is they figured out how these UAP are doing what we see them do, right? And the biggest breakthrough technology that they're using is they're creating an immense amount of energy in a localized area, and they're creating a bubble around the craft. And that bubble is warping space-time in a localized area. And the result of that is everything we observe. And so one of the biggest questions people have always asked over the years is, when I see a UFO, I go take a picture of it, why does it always come out blurry? Well, this breakthrough explains that the answer to that age-old question. Like when you're taking a photo of a UAP or a video, you're doing it through this space-time barrier, this bubble that's around the craft. And so of course it's going to be distorted and blurry. It's like the equivalent of taking a picture of koi fish in a pond from above the water.
Right.
It's going to look all blurry and distorted because there's a different medium there. Right?
And it doesn't adhere, the space-time bubble does not adhere to the same laws of physics that we know, right? So it exists in space, it exists in the atmosphere, in the sky, and in water.
So basically whatever
it moves effortlessly through those three different, continuums, right?
Yeah, so basically whatever's in the bubble, whatever craft is in the bubble, is not impacted by the environment outside the bubble. So simply put, it allows it to do things that we can't do. It allows transmedium travel. It can move effortlessly from space to the air to the ocean. And the environment outside the bubble just moves around the bubble. And one of the things I'm proud of in the film is that this really complicated advanced technology gets broken down in a really digestible, understandable way in the film by these lead scientists in a way where, the average person can really follow it and it makes sense, and it explains everything we've observed. It explains how these craft are able to do the things they do. And it also opens your imagination to how we could use that technology to change our lives. It could be the key to interstellar travel. It could be the key to solving the energy crisis. All these great things can come out of this technology. But the downside is it could also be used for evil, for war.
What is your theory? I mean, I came away feeling, because of the way, the space-time bubble and these UAP can disappear into water, I just got this sense that there is a whole civilization under the ocean's floor. Like, this is where they exist, because there's so much of our oceanic, space that is so unexplored. 80% is unexplored. Do you get a vibe, and this is not to be, we're not holding you to it here?
Well, look, a number of the officials I interviewed talk about UAP that are seen coming out of the ocean. A number of officials I talked to, and I don't really get into this much in the film, but a number of officials I've talked to have talked about huge craft seen underwater passing our submarines. Huge crafts the size of football fields, moving at thousands of miles an hour under the ocean. So clearly, UAP are under the ocean. It's also the most obvious place to hide. If you're trying to hide from humanity, 70% of our planet is water, right? So you'd hide in the ocean. I don't know if that means there's a civilization under the water, or if it's just, a giant place to park your craft, That might just simply be the case. They might just feel it's safer to stay there. One big takeaway for me is that the folks who have been involved in covering this up, people involved in the legacy program, we all could benefit from learning some of what they've learned, right? At least the stuff that won't cause national security issues, right? The base facts. But I think we're at this moment in time where we have to acknowledge the only way that's going to happen is if a president gives those people the ability to come clean and to do it in a way where they're not going to be punished or made out to be villains. There's got to be some sort of, for lack of a better word, immunity given to people for the greater good, for the benefit of the greater good. Like, hey, you might have done something that could be spun to be illegal, or could have been spun to be bad, but for the greater good, we're going to put the past in the past. Just come clean with what you've learned. I think that has to happen. And Rubio says it in the film. He says
he's right there. I mean, he's with Trump all the time.
Rubio says this is not this pursuit of the truth is not an endeavor to go out and punish anyone, but we need to find out what they've learned. And taxpayers ultimately paid for this. These programs are using our money, our taxpayers' money.
I think this is, and by the way, this whole topic will expose whether you're a pessimist or an optimist, because I'm an optimist, and I don't feel fear when I hear this, and the idea of sharing, even if you don't know everything, but sharing what you do know, or what's, something for all of us, is, to me, a positive thing. It helped me, by the way. I was making a few decisions about my house. Should I invest in, putting some furniture in here, and I'm building a business, I don't want to overexpend. And I said to myself, we're such a small part of this universe. Like, this documentary helped me see that live now. We're all, not only are we all here a short period of time, but we're all also totally irrelevant. Each human being is like, so just do it. Whatever it is you're thinking about doing, do it. Dan FARAH, you're an amazing guy. I hope you're playing. I don't think you can go back to a romantic comedy after this. You've got to make another one. The Age of Disclosure 2, I hope is in the works, and I hope it involves behind the scenes of the greatest announcement ever. I don't know what's next for you, but
thank you.
I see you nodding with a smile, so that might be it. And let's see what the President of the United States does, what Marco Rubio does, where this goes from here. But you've made a massive impact.
Thank you.
The Age of Disclosure is on Prime Video. Did I miss anything?
No, I'm just grateful for you shining a light on the film and how important it is. Thank you.
Thank you for making it. It's incredible. All right. Hot Mics with Billy Bush, presented by LA Golf. Take your swing to the next level with LA Golf's cutting-edge technology. Not as cutting edge as the technology. There's no space-time bubble around these balls, although I'd like to find one. Visit LAGolf.com. Upgrade your game. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Hot Mics with Billy Bush. Great time. You know it.